These first set of videos show very rare security camera footage, which captures a pond's concrete spillway, undermining and collapsing from start to finish. The first event is in October 2019, right after construction is complete and it is reconstructed, and then the same undermining failure is repeated in September 2021 at the same location. Rapid subsurface undermining is not well understood in Florida, where most of the time such failures are considered slope stability or overtopping related, or even improper construction. However, the sandy soils in Florida under differential water levels can self-bore through the path of least resistance and concentrate flow into a subterranean conduit, which causes the water to vortex on the upstream side and boil on the downstream side. This is not textbook flow through homogeneous sand, but it turns into surface flow eroding the sand. And as the gouged opening expands, the flow rate increases exponentially, leading to rapid failure. More will be explained, but have a look first.
Undermining failures like this demonstrate water's hidden power exploiting Florida's geology. Water always follows gravity, a law no lawyer has found a loophole in. In 1979, Florida Power and Light's reservoir failed catastrophically. Engineers called it piping because backward erosion piping wasn't understood. The discharge reached 100,000 cubic feet per second, same as the killer Guadalupe River in Texas. It derailed a freight train in minutes. Florida has hidden sandwich layers, thin seams of highly permeable sand, with flow rates 10 to 100 times higher than surrounding soils. These occur at depths like 4 to 6 feet or 26 to 28 feet, acting like concealed highways for water. Backward erosion piping starts at exit points. Fine particles wash out, forming tiny pipes that grow upstream. Harmless seepage transforms into concentrated stream flow with exponential erosive power. Concrete spillways represent the most common failure type. Water exploits the boundary between soil and structure. The process seems controllable, then amplifies exponentially. Water follows physics, always exploiting the weakest path. Once stream erosion begins, solid ground vanishes in moments. The animations show exactly how this invisible process works.
We're approaching Indiantown, Florida, where on October 30th, 1979, those ancient beaches revealed their deadly secret. Florida Power and Light had built what seemed like a routine engineering project, a massive cooling reservoir holding 6,600 acres of water behind 19 miles of sand dikes. It was designed to cool their power plant, a standard industrial practice. What killed this reservoir was invisible to the engineers who built it. Buried beneath their sand dike at exactly 22 to 24 feet elevation lay what geologists now call the white sand lens, a layer of ancient beach sand from that 115,000-year-old shoreline. This wasn't just any sand. It was wave-sorted, uniform, cohesionless. Essentially, nature had pre-engineered it for rapid erosion. We're approaching Indiantown, Florida, where on October 30th, 1979, those ancient beaches revealed their deadly secret. Florida Power and Light had built what seemed like a routine engineering project, a massive cooling reservoir holding 6,600 acres of water behind 19 miles of sand dikes. It was designed to cool their power plant, a standard industrial practice. But here's what makes this disaster so chilling. There were warning signs that no one understood. Engineers had been seeing water boils, small eruptions of water and sand for months. Some were 12 inches wide. Critical monitoring equipment had failed. 3 days before the collapse, someone had mysteriously cut power to canal gates, dropping water levels. And just before the failure, new borrow pits had been dug nearby for nature trails. And it's still happening. In the 2010s and 2020s, contractors working on water management projects in the same area keep finding the same thing, saturated sand layers at exactly the same elevation. When they reported finding 2 to 3.5 feet of this material during construction, they were told to ignore it. Expert witnesses have confirmed it's the same sand, the same geological hazard that killed the FPL reservoir. But at 11:30 p.m. on that October night, something went catastrophically wrong. The western dike didn't just crack or settle, it vanished. A 600-foot section simply disappeared into the darkness, releasing 100,000 cubic feet of water per second. To put that in perspective, that's more water than flows over Niagara Falls. By 1 a.m., the flood waters were so powerful, they overturned a freight train in the darkness. By 3:30 a.m., the flow had peaked at that incredible 100,000 cubic feet per second. By 3:30 that afternoon, 66,000 acre-feet of water had drained away, flooding 14,100 acres of Martin County farmland. What happened was a process called backward erosion piping. Water from the reservoir found that ancient beach sand and began flowing through it toward a lower borrow pit, an old railroad excavation that intersected the marine terrace. The water didn't just flow. It began carrying sand particles with it, grain by grain, creating what modern engineers describe as amazing high-focus underground conduits. The immediate response was practical. Fill all the borrow pits to eliminate this specific failure mode. But the deeper problem remained. That ancient shoreline, the Green Ridge Marine Terrace, runs for miles through the region. Every time modern projects excavate near this elevation, 22 to 24 feet, they risk hitting the same deadly sand layer. The tunnel grew silently, invisibly, eroding backward from the exit point toward the reservoir. The overlying dike material was left suspended over a growing void until suddenly, catastrophically, it all collapsed at once. Engineers found a perfect example of what their textbooks call backward erosion piping. But by then it was far too late. We're 28 feet higher than today. Where we're flying now, over what geologists call the Green Ridge, was prime beachfront property. Wave after wave sorted sand into perfect, uniform grains, the kind you'd find at any Florida beach today. But this ancient shoreline would eventually become a geological time bomb. The pattern is becoming clear. Projects along the ancient Green Ridge shoreline plus deep excavation plus the right hydraulic gradient equals inevitable backward erosion piping failure. The math is simple but deadly. When you create a 5% gradient through this ancient beach sand, you recreate the exact conditions that caused Florida's largest reservoir failure. Modern engineers describe finding amazing high-focus underground conduits where flow concentrates, The exact same phenomenon that created that 600-foot breach in 1979. The geological irony is profound. Paradise beaches from 115,000 years ago continue to destroy modern infrastructure. As we pull back over this landscape, remember, you're not just looking at modern Florida. You're looking at ancient beaches that are still claiming victims, still waiting for the next project that doesn't understand the power of 115,000-year-old sand. The Green Ridge Marine Terrace remains what it's always been: wave-sorted, cohesionless, and perfectly engineered by nature for catastrophic failure. Know your geology, or repeat 1979.